Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you to everybody that's joining with us tonight as I've got everybody logging in. Just wanted to say thank you again. This is one of the topics that a lot of times people have that come up that they've got questions around. It makes sense because over half of the people that I work with are female, and a lot of those people are widowed or are single later in life, and they're trying to navigate this because retirement challenges are different for women often than men. So tonight what we're going to go over is a lot around that, of trying to help you out with how do you maximize your retirement future, how do you get the most out of your own financial journey. I call it your financial pathway because it's unique to you. There's no one else that's going to walk that same walk as you, and we want to make sure that you're getting the most possibly out of it. Again, my name is Andy Young. I'm the founder of the Financial Pathway Group. I welcome you guys here tonight. If we haven't met before, nice to meet you. If you are the first time that you're watching this, I try to go live every 2 weeks to be able to help out with information for you on how you can maximize your own financial journey. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get in tonight as we go over your financial pathway. And we're going to be touching on challenges that women have with retirement that may not be the same thing for men. So with that, if you're in that situation, don't feel like you're walking it alone. This is a path that a lot of people have journeyed with that. So potential retirement saving challenges for women is what we're hitting on tonight as we go through. And why does this really matter? What's going on with this? Well, it's some of the special challenges that come up for females that don't exist for males is that you live longer. We tend to check out earlier than you. More likely that you're going to be living on your own, and we'll hit on that a little bit more here in a moment. More likely that you're going to take career breaks. My mother took a break in her working career to be able to help raise myself and my little sister. I'm grateful for that opportunity, but because of that there's challenges that exist for females. When we look at this that don't exist for males. It's not often that we have men that decide that they're going to take a career break and that they're not going to be out in the workforce as long with that. So if they're not going to be out in the workforce as long, it makes sense that they're not going to have the ability to save as much. So that's one of the challenges that we have that we're specifically going to hit on tonight. And obviously this is something that comes up often, it's pay gaps. You earn less, you have less ability to save for retirement savings, and that typically means a lower Social Security benefit as well that comes along with that. So as we go through with this, some of those challenges, when we're talking about longer life expectancies, right here it really calls it out. Age 65, a woman can expect to live another 20.6 years compared with 18.1 for a man. Women comprise 65% of the population that's 85 or older. You can see that greatly outweighs the men that are left at that point in time, 35%. And this was from a census survey that went out. So there are 100 female centenarians for every 30 male. This is one of the things that when I talk to people about long-term health care, when we talk about long-term health care and when we're meeting with a couple and I say, listen, this is a problem that typically is going to be an issue for the female of the group. Because for men, if they have a health care concern, normally the women will step in and care for that in those cases. But once that man is gone, he has passed on, now the woman is left to be able to care for herself. And when that happens, the kids normally don't step in to be able to take care of because they're in the middle of their working career. So we see that this happens to be a problem a lot of times for women later in life, and that's why long-term care being so important with that. Moving on with that, so the likelihood of women living on their own, you can see with this as far as men versus women, men being the light blue, women the dark blue, that we can see it is more likely that 65 or older that women are going to be living on their own. And that if we see that women are more likely to take those career breaks for caregiving because of that lost income that happens. For my mom, she left from working at a bank. She took that break in her career to be able to help raise myself and my little sister. There was a lot of times of taking us to and from. She joked that she was really happy when I turned 16 at least, because then I could be the bus for my little sister. Potentially lower Social Security benefits because of that. If you're working less, then there's a greater chance that you're going to have lower earnings, because when you step back into the workforce, you're normally not going to step back in at the same point that you were. You do see that there's a lot more vulnerability in the event of divorce or spouse's job loss, just that happens along with this. Difficulty finding that comparable job when you re-enter is what we talked about a second ago. When you have that return to work, for instance, I had one of my bosses in the past that his wife took a break. They had 3 children and took a break in her career to be able to decide what she wanted to do. And stepping back into a physical therapy role for her at that time wasn't realistic and to be able to be at the same point that she was. So she decided to step into a different career altogether. And flexible schedules, they can affect the salary and career advancement for someone as well. What do we mean by flexible schedules? Well, if you've got to be able to take a break to go get the kids from school, for instance, if you need to pick them up at 3:15 in the afternoon, well, there's not a lot of jobs that have a lunch break at 3:15. You're going to have an issue that comes with that. So whether you're male or female, that's going to be an issue that you have when it comes to childcare and what are you going to do. That's why so many people have after-school programs to be able to keep the kids longer until they get to past that 5 o'clock point where the kids can be picked up by the parents from that point. So moving through this with what other challenges that we got. Women generally earn less. Is it right? Absolutely not. I don't care if you're male or female, whoever's doing the job the best, that's who needs to be able to earn with this. But women on average earn 83% of what men earn, doing the same roles, same jobs. That affects their ability to save for the future. It also affects Social Security benefits because that's going to be based upon your working years. And that's increased vulnerability to those other issues that we've already talked about with that. How much annual income are you actually going to need? So this is one of the myths that you've heard, is that you're going to only need 60 or 90% of your pre-retirement income. So that's a general thought, but is that really true? Are you going to be able to live on 60 to 90% of your income right now? I normally tell people, think about this. Right now you're working. You're going to work, you're driving in. Yeah, you might eliminate the commute, you'll eliminate the work clothes that you've been buying, but when every day's a Saturday, which you historically spend the most money on, what are you going to be giving up? I would wager to say that you're going to be doing more. You're getting out and you're enjoying life. When every day is a Saturday, that you're going to enjoy yourself more. You're going to get out and do that. So that 60 to 90% of your income, although it's a guideline, I don't really see many people taking a step back in retirement. I see them wanting to enjoy their life to the fullest with that. Think about what expenses are actually going to change. So what's going to change when you retire? Maybe you're going to eliminate a mortgage. Ideally that we're going to retire that we're debt-free. But so maybe you're going to eliminate that mortgage. Healthcare costs might increase though. So it's kind of this seesaw effect. One thing goes down and the other goes up. You are going to want to include the benefits for things that you want to do. Special retirement pursuits is what we call it. So travel, hobbies, things that you might want to enjoy right now while you're working. You just don't have the time to do it. I spoke with someone recently. They were going to take a trip to the Grand Canyon for the first time. Because of that, that's an added expense. We're talking about a $2,000 or $3,000 trip. That's not something you're typically doing every single year. Maybe it's the big vacation, but now you have the ability. You can take multiple vacations. You got free time. Time's on your hand. You can do whatever you want, right? So list those expenses. Some of the things that you can do to help out with this, start planning for those expenses. If you don't already, have some type of spending plan. Know what you're going to spend, when you're going to spend it. So if we look at this and we know that what our income is going to be and we know what our expenses typically are, we'll know what we have room for to be able to budget. I said that 4-letter word, budget. So we're going to budget so that we can make sure that we're ready for those expenses when they come up. Things happen. You're going to need a new roof on the house eventually, right? We're going to see stuff like that comes up. You're going to need a new car eventually. But if you want to take that trip or travel, we can really, really dial in what that's going to look like and how much we have available to be able to spend on it. This is a hidden danger for a lot of retirements, inflation. Now, everybody saw inflation when it came to it over the last year. I know I see it at the gas pump. I see it at the grocery store. I feel like I used to be able to fill a whole shopping cart for $100. Now I'm lucky to fill 2 bags. Well, what does that mean? Things get more expensive as it goes. Been listening to a book called 5 Presidents, and it was really interesting to me to hear the salaries of a Secret Service agent back in the late 50s, early 60s. They were talking about, I got a pay raise, and I was making $12,000 a year. And I'm like, oh my gosh, how in the world would you make it? Well, that's when the 5 and 10 stores still existed, right? Inflation has turned that 5 and 10 store into a $1.25 store. So everything got more expensive by quite a lot. That's going to happen with your retirement as well when we plan for this. So we see that today somebody's expenses $50,000 to be able to go out and live on. If we fast forward 25 years through retirement, that's really that same $50,000 of goods would cost $105,000. That's unreal to plan. You've more than doubled the cost of that. And that's assuming just a 3% annual inflation. Last year we were at 8.25%. So 8.25%. Big difference with that when it comes to our retirement of how long that money's going to last if things like that happen. Now, Social Security is not going to keep up with that level of inflation rate. It'll adjust, but not by that much. So we've got to be able to have other sources of retirement income, other places we can pull from to make up that difference, because I don't want you to chop up your lifestyle and give things up just because you go, I'm sorry, I'm at the mercy of a fixed income, and that's all that I've got. So we want to pay attention to that as we're going through. Taxes will be a penalty for many people. What do I mean by that? A penalty. Penalty sounds bad, right? Well, you're going to get penalized if you don't pay attention to this. Your tax bracket is based upon your income and your filing status. So if you go from married filing jointly to all of a sudden now you're filing as a single individual, you can see your tax rate double easily with that. So there's special tax rates that you can take advantage of as far as depending upon the source of that income. For instance, capital gains. Capital gains are something that you can eliminate if you plan for it. So you can plan to eliminate that, but there's a difference. If it was a short-term sale on something where it's going to be ordinary income versus if I hold that item, that stock, that bond, real estate, any of those things, if I hold it for longer than 1 year and I can sell it for a long-term capital gain, I can cut the cost of taxes in more than half. There are tax-free income sources as well. So if we look at tax-free income sources, make sure if you don't already have tax-free income as part of your retirement, you need to start wondering why. There are a lot of places that you can pull this from. So maybe you've heard of a Roth IRA, a Roth individual retirement account. Maybe you have Roth as part of your 401k and you always wondered, hey, is that a good thing to have or not? That's where you need to talk to a qualified professional that can help guide you through and see, does it make sense for you to save in that bucket? Now, if you feel taxes are going to be higher in the future and your income is going to be higher where you think that it would cause a problem, then maybe that's going to make sense. But there's lots of tax-free income sources, whether it's municipal bonds, properly designed permanent life insurance, that you can be able to pull money from, that it's not going to affect you from taxes. That's also going to affect your cost of things like Medicare. So we want to pay attention to those as we're looking at our income sources. So there's special rules that help you with this so that you're getting the most out of it. Now, if we also want to pay attention with this, healthcare will be a problem for almost every single person that watches this. Healthcare is going to be something that expense-wise that we see that the inflation around healthcare has gone up even more than that of higher education. So population age 65 and older in skilled nursing facilities, 66% are women, 34% are men. I recently helped my wife out that we set up at a skilled care facility. Majority of the people that were coming out from there to the fall festival were mainly female. So if we see this, that most of the men have passed on the skilled nursing care that's left for the women. With that, the average cost for a private, semi-private nursing home room, almost $95,000. And the care is something that planned for almost 4 years for women versus men on average 2.2 years. So it is a problem. It will come up for a majority of people. So age 65, 70% of people need this. To the tune of almost $100,000 a year for that care. Now, that greatly depends on the area that you're in. Where I'm recording this, in rural Virginia, near Tennessee, our average care for that for a semi-private room is around $60,000. So that $95,000, we're not there yet, but in this area, it still greatly can affect your retirement future when we look at how quickly can you spend $65,000. Think about somebody selling their home, which luckily right now homes have went up in value, But let's say that they sell their house for $250,000 and they plan to use that for care. Very quickly, at $65,000 a year, that $250,000 can disappear. So you can see why this might be a problem for a lot of people when it comes to retirement. Now, if we continue on with this, we see how long will retirement actually last. We are living longer, right? We're having more of those birthdays. My little girl's getting ready to turn 6 in November. She's very excited. Every day she asks, is it her birthday yet? But the average 65-year-old woman in the U.S. can expect to live another almost 21 years. So that life expectancy has continued to increase. The last couple of years, it actually has went backwards, but we had COVID. So that did affect with the rates. But when we see this historically, think about when Social Security was enacted. Back in the 30s, the average life expectancy was 63 years old. That's why our retirement age was set at 65. Now we have a full retirement age of age 67, with people still living another 20 years after that. So all of a sudden, 67 to 97, not that unlikely to continue with that. How did we plan for it in the past? Well, in the past, maybe you have been to an event or heard an advisor talk about the three-legged stool. Those three-legged stools, it's pretty sturdy, right? I'm not having to worry about balancing. It's very, very stable. Social Security, a pension, and then you had your individual savings on top of that. Well, how many of you right now watching this have Social Security that you're going to qualify for? Almost every single one of you should be nodding your head with that. Whether you feel like Social Security is going to be the same or change with that, you're going to have some form of Social Security. Pensions, way more rare. If you're lucky enough, if you're a federal or state employee, or maybe you work at a large corporation that still has a pension, fantastic. Still have some railroad workers that they don't get Social Security, but they get the railroad pension. That's nice to be able to have with that. Now, that three-legged stool, you're really, really, really having to balance on individual savings and investments. Back in the 80s, when 401ks really started ramping up, when they were created and started to ramp up with employers, what they did is they kicked pensions out. And they said, we're really going to rely on you to save yourself and to be able to do this. Well, when we had that problem, you can only imagine for the females that have entered the workforce, they took years off to be able to help raise kids. They stepped back in. They were earning 80% less. They're earning 88% of the actual pay. When we see that, all those things to add up, you can see how there's a bigger and bigger problem for females, that the tables almost seem stacked against you when it comes to this with retirement. We don't want that to happen. We want to make sure that we're planning in a better way with that. So Social Security basics, 94% of workers are covered by Social Security. It is the major source of retirement income. This was designed to be an old age supplement to help prevent people being destitute in their old age. It was not designed to be the sole form of taking care of people in retirement. Unfortunately, for a lot of people, that is their sole form of retirement, that they're forced to be able to make do with whatever they have left from their working years with Social Security. So we want to get the most out of that. So your benefit's going to be based upon the number of years you've worked and the amount that you've earned. So this formula, it's going to take into account 35 highest earning years. And it's going to be able to say, okay, well, what happens? Those you have to have worked at least 40 quarters. It's going to look at the 35 highest earning years. The age that you start claiming the benefit matters most. So what do we look at? 66 or 67, depending upon when you were born, is going to be your full retirement age. That means it's not delayed, it's not reduced whatsoever. Age 70, that's when you're going to get the most, so 32% more than taking it at full retirement age. If you decide to take it early at age 62, you're going to get less. So 25 or 30% less, depending upon your birthday with that. So you can see anywhere from getting 75% of your benefit to 132% of your benefit. There's a lot of wiggle room here. And I tell people, when should you? Well, most people, when should you is as soon as you can, right? When can I retire the soonest that I'm going to have enough money that it will last, I can enjoy my life as much as possible, and I don't have to worry about it. That's what I want you to be able to enjoy. I want you to know that your money's going to last, that you don't have to worry about these things, and that you've planned that if you're the only one left out of the two of you, that you're still going to be okay, that you're not going to have to worry about things. that puts you in a power position to be able to enjoy your financial path. So Social Security, as we look at this, that you can see that when I'm talking about the difference of filing at 62 versus waiting all the way until 70, you can see the difference here. What does that look like? So somebody, the full retirement age would be $1,944. Now we're talking about the difference of as little as $1,350 up to $2,376. You can see this is a very, very big difference. You're talking about $1,000 difference every single month of when you take a benefit. That's why taking it early, you really have to make sure that you're making sense of this and that you're doing it the right way to where you're getting as much as possible out of it. Employer pension basics, so understand the payout. Even if you yourself don't qualify for a pension, but maybe your spouse does, this is going to be important for you. So they're going to get a statement, or you're going to get a statement that you're going to have to decide how you take this pension. So let's go over some of those options that might exist with that. So the normal retirement benefit would be that they get it for their entire life. So if that was, let's say, $4,000 a month that they would get, if they die after receiving 2 payments, you're going to receive $0 a month. But maybe somebody like me got in your ear and said, hey, we probably want to make sure that we're protected for both of you guys. So then you can choose how much of that benefit do you want to have continue. So you can see that you're the primary person that this is based on, they're going to get less. So they're going to get less depending upon how much they decide to pass on if they were to die early. So let's say that they want to make sure that 100% of it continues. So we can see instead of $4,000 a month, it's $3,600 a month. But if they pass away, you're still getting $3,600 a month. Or if they said, well, I want to get a little bit more than that, and I don't feel like you'll need everything, so that you can continue, but you'll need some. So $3,800 a month, and when they pass away, only half of it continues to you. This is something that I always like to play out in different scenarios to see how will that work. What are we going to look at? We're going to look and see what are your actual expenses. What are you actually spending? And what are your other income sources? Are we really counting on this pension? In most people's cases, they're really counting on the pension. So we want to try to figure out how can we fit life within the lesser amount to where 100% of it continues if one of you were to pass early, so that we can get the most possible out of that. Well, what happens? Well, like I said, we're going to look at that annual income needed for retirement. We're going to take away all the different income sources, so Social Security and pensions, and we're going to see what's the gap. How much additional income do we need? That's going to let me know what other sources do we have available and what should we maybe be doing. So if we see that we have an additional gap that we need to be able to fill, let's say, for instance, we have an additional gap that we need to fill of an extra $400 a month. We can decide how to do that. Do we want to pull it from our investments, our personal savings, or do we want to look for guaranteed sources that can step in and guarantee us that paycheck to make up the difference for the rest of our life? Most people want the guarantees. And if you're sitting there saying, yeah, of course I want the guarantees, you're not alone, because who would want to sit there and go, I think I can cover it, but I'm not sure? Most people are not going to want to have that risk in their life. They're going to want to have things taken care of the same way as right now you're used to a paycheck showing up every 2 weeks. You don't want that to go away. You want to make sure that your bills are paid and things are taken care of. So let's keep that going with making sure that we've got guarantees to be able to cover that. So personal savings, some potential factors working against women. We've talked about this a couple times now. Women earn less than men in similar jobs. More likely that they're going to work part-time, especially while their kids are getting raised, so that they can have the flexibility with their schedule. Fewer years that they're fully in the workforce by taking that time off, and they start saving later, and their ability to save is they're typically saving less. So we want to make sure that we're getting good advice that we can take care of that. So what could you actually do? Well, you could save more, right? For most people, that would mean they have to give something up, so that may not be a great option. Right. You could participate in employer-sponsored plans where you're able to get matches. And let's say that where you work, that they say if you contribute 6% to your retirement, they'll match it 6%. Well, we want to make sure to take advantage of that. You can also contribute to your own individual retirement accounts. Just become educated about all the different investment vehicles that you could use, all the different types of accounts. It can be very, very confusing. So make sure that you have somebody that can guide you through that so that you're taking the best advice, because there are things that you can do that will box you into a corner. And I like to have multi-purpose money. I don't like boxed in money to where it's only good for one purpose. We want to make sure that we take advantage of stuff because opportunities are going to come and life will change. So we want to make sure that we have flexibility for you. So as we continue with this, that we see personal savings just a little bit could mean a big difference when it comes to retirement. So let's compare Jane and Sally here. Jane, $50,000 a year income, same thing Sally has. And let's look at the difference here of saving 5% of the income versus 8%. Now it's $208 a month versus $333. For the same 15 years saving, the total amount that would be saved, expecting a compound earning of 5%, we're talking about the difference of just shy of $56,000 versus almost $90,000. Which would you rather have? Now, 3% doesn't sound like a big difference, but that's a pretty substantial difference between $56,000 and $90,000. And just imagine, multiply that salary, take that and double it. See what that difference really could make for you when it comes to long-term savings with that. Tax-advantaged vehicles, so things like 401ks, you're able to put the money in, and you can defer the tax. You don't eliminate the tax. You're just kicking the tax to where you're going to pay the bill down the road. So you can take full advantage of 401ks, other employer-sponsored plans, where you put the money in. It's going to come off the top. So let's say that you make $60,000 a year. Well, if I decide to save 5% of that, it's going to come off the top. So it's going to lower my income. I haven't paid the tax on it yet. What I'm agreeing to, though, is I will pay the tax in the future. Then that's where we have to determine what's going to be the best place to be able to save that. That's where you want to make sure that you're making the right decisions with that. There is the ability also to do catch-up contributions once you reach the age of 50. So those age 50 contributions help you to dump more in later in life when you've typically eliminated some of those expenses that you have earlier on in life while you're raising kids with that. How do you deal with shortfalls in your plan? Well, unfortunately, sometimes I have to have this conversation, and I'm not a big fan of it. I'm not a big fan of it because when we're having this conversation, we're saying, you know what, I didn't plan. Or I did plan and things went sideways and I didn't have a plan B. So what do we do to be able to take advantage of this? So number one, how do we deal with the shortfall? We could choose to spend less. We could choose that, you know what, I was used to living on $5,000 a month. Now I'm only going to have $3,500. I guess I've got to fit my $5,000 a month life into $3,500, and that means I'm going to have to start getting rid of stuff. I'm going to have to start giving up things. I could delay retirement. I could postpone it. I could work longer. I could find other potential sources of retirement income. So maybe I want to work part-time. Maybe I want to do something to be able to help produce some extra income with that while I am trying to figure out how to make this work. So what does it look like when we delay retirement? That does give you the advantage, more accumulation years. So you got more time to be able to save. You're probably going to have a shorter distribution period, meaning less time that you're actually pulling from your wealth versus adding to it. You could delay choosing your Social Security benefits, which are going to make those more, and it's going to give you continued access to health insurance, so you should have less need to be able to pull from savings to pay for any type of health concern. If you decide to work during retirement, which is becoming more popular, you could receive a part of your pension benefit once you've reached that retirement age. So you could decide, maybe you're going to do some type of hybrid retirement here. You retire from one position and you decide to work part-time, whether it be at the same employer or a different employer. I had people in the past that worked at Lockheed Martin that they retired and then decided to go back to work on a casual part-time basis. So they were working a few months, off a few months. This can affect your Social Security benefits. If you've retired before full retirement age, it can affect your access to health care. It can even, it could give you some non-financial benefits as well as financial benefits. So there's good and bad to it, right? That's what I'm trying to say, is that there's good and bad to it when you decide to still work or delay that retirement. So we want to make sure that we're planning for these type of scenarios. I could remember sitting with Kathy, and Kathy was a great client. Kathy was concerned because her husband had been ill for many years. He was an engineer, was ill for many years, and they were facing down the decision that, you know what, we're coming up on him being 65, and he's going to lose his disability benefits. They were trying to weigh out that we had all these careers, we had all these earnings for both of us, and now we've only got so much savings. And now we're staring down the pipe of we're going to have these added expenses for his care that aren't paid for if we don't have the disability continuing. So how are we going to make this work? This can be where, you know, somebody starts to try to figure out, okay, do I have to go back to work? What's going to happen? Unfortunately, they were having to navigate what happens if he continues to live in his care. What can we afford? How can we make this work? And a blessing for them was that he actually did pass before the benefit ran out. Now that was just one of those things that happened. That was a God thing. That for them that happened, and he was comfortable and he passed on. But we see that happens, that people have to make those decisions when it comes time of what that's going to look like. Some phased retirement options. What we see that happens with that? What are some other sources that we can pull from? Most people have the asset of their home in retirement that they've saved for, they paid on for their entire working career, so 15, 30 years or more that they were paying on this house. And now they've got to figure out how do they pull money from this. So this is where people start looking at maybe downsizing. Maybe they're going to move in with family. They're selling the house altogether. They're moving into assisted living. Or some people even look at reverse mortgage options with this. So again, making sure that you're fully planning for this and you're looking at this. You can also look for cash value inside of permanent life insurance policies. Places you can pull retirement income from to help make up the difference and see what you need to do. If you're working with a financial professional, here's ideally what you should see this look like. They should be able to help you out with seeing the bigger picture and talking through some of your problems. They're going to work with you to actually create strategy around this. This is one of my favorite things to do, of being able to sit down with people and start asking the what ifs. And so that we can go through and we can start building those out. And I tell people, we can live your life on paper and in the computer before you ever have to address those situations in real life. And here's the thing. It shouldn't just be a one-time thing. This should be something that's ongoing, that you're constantly updating as life changes, because it will. I had a couple that I started working with last year. At that point in time, that we knew that she was not well, and that they were trying to figure out, okay, there's going to be some added expenses. She stopped working. We've got some income. He was receiving income as well with retirement. Luckily for them, they recently decided to move closer to one of their kids. So they sold their home that they've lived in for many, many years, cashed out with that, and moved to a new house. And now they're navigating new problems. But we were able to plan that out and see what does that look like and start making decisions around it so that we had flexibility. You can keep up to date and just by working with a financial professional of knowing the changes. Tax laws change every single year, and that will affect your retirement. Next week, we're going to be talking about required minimum distributions. That's something that has changed quite a bit recently. So that's why we're focusing on that. That with those required minimum distributions, we see that there are changes that happen and things that you need to address. If you're watching this, you've stuck with us this long, you might have questions. If you just simply send me a message, so you can send me a message and say women's retirement, and I will send you a link back for the schedule, and that way we can go through together, help you out with your own individual questions, your individual concerns. Again, just simply send me a message that says women retirement, and I will know exactly what you mean. I'll send you the link with that to the calendar so that we can go through and address your own questions, your own problems, because like I said at the beginning, no two people have the same problem. No two people have the same way of going through and addressing things, and we want to make sure that you're getting the most possible out of your own retirement. Again, this is Andy Young with the Financial Pathway Group. I wish you the best, and thank you so much for joining us tonight.